All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, we're going to call to order the Architectural Board of Review agenda for August 24th, 2020. Start with our roll call.
Yes, thank you. This is Mary, Commission Secretary. I will take the roll call. We have Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Cunningham.
Here.
And Board Member Olson.
Here.
We have Board Member Whalen and Watkins absent today.
Okay. And moving on to general business and public comment. So we're going to open public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda. Do we have anybody in the public who would like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you are a member of the public who wishes to speak on an item that's not on today's agenda, please raise your hand now. There is a raise hand button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Green means your hand is down, red means your hand is raised. I do see one, Zoanne Lyle, and I will unmute her now. She will have 2 minutes to speak, and there will be a timer on the screen. Ms. Lyle, you are self-muted right now, so if you'd like to unmute yourself at this time, you can address the board on any item not on today's agenda.
Okay, I apologize if I did not see if this was being addressed or not, but it's regarding the 4 parking spaces that are being designated for this property. I don't know if that's something that's being discussed.
So there are 3 items on the agenda. I believe you're referring to 1812 San Pasqual.
Yes, 1812.
All right, so that item will be on later. I believe it's the 3rd item on today's agenda. So we will take public comment for that particular item at that time.
Okay.
Yes. I'll mute you now and we'll see you in a bit. All right, so if anyone else would like to raise their hand, again, that's the top right-hand corner. There's a hand button, and that indicates that we that you'd like to speak on any item not on today's agenda. Mr. Chair, I do not see anyone else raising their hand, and we have not received any general written public comment.
Okay, great. Then we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes from August 10th.
Do we need to read them or just approve them?
Mr. Chair, really quickly, we do have David Watkins. He has joined. If he could please turn on his camera for this portion of the meeting, as well as his microphone. During the deliberation or the opening remarks, we have everyone on. Perfect. There he is. Thanks so much, David.
Mm-hmm. Hi, David.
David.
Welcome, David. So, I would make a motion to approve the minutes for August 10th, 2020.
Okay. I will second. Oh, Bob's beat me to it. Bob seconded. Any discussion? Any edits, suggested alterations, etc.?
Nope.
Nobody has any? Okay. If that's all the discussion, then let's call our vote.
Thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore.
Yes.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham.
Yes.
Board Member Olson.
Yes.
And Board Member Watkins.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next we'll have minutes from the consent calendar for the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the consent calendar, ABR August 17th, 2020, item A was given final approval as submitted. That was 424 Port Lamar. Item B, which was 1317 Punta Gorda, was postponed 1 week due to a lack of quorum for that item. And then item C, 3902 State Street, was given approval, project design and final approval with a condition.
Okay. You have
Make a
a motion to,
Motion to approve.
Second.
okay. Motion by Bob, second by Leon. Any discussion? No? Okay, let's do our vote.
Okay, thank you. This is Mary. So we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Watkins.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and moving on to consent minutes for today, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So for the August 24th consent agenda for the Architectural Board of Review, item A, 1317 Punta Gorda, was received approval of review after final with the following comments: that the applicant consider painting the backflow preventer dark green or black, and that they thicken the density of plantings adjacent to the air conditioning units to shield neighboring properties from noise.
Matthew, I think first of all, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, but then under discussion, I'd like to make a couple of revisions.
Second.
Seconded by Leon.
Number one, yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Number one, after, we discussed giving the owner or the applicant the option of painting the backflow preventer. But after discussion regarding the AC units, knowing that the project is going to need to be revised, we made that a condition. So the painting of the backflow preventer is a condition of approval to be staff verified. And I think rather than thickening the density of plantings adjacent to air conditioning units, the agreement was the applicant would shift the AC units in order to accommodate screen planting between the units and the patios. David could verify that, I hope.
I agree with that.
Mary, did you get
So-
those changes?
Yes.
Perfect. Are those changes
Was
acceptable
there
to the seconder of the motion?
Yes.
okay, under discussion, is that enough staff to review an updated plan set and confirm it works, or confirm that it sounds a little difficult to me for a staff member to determine if the density has been thickened up enough, or so.
Well, it's not so much a matter of density. It's the particular AC units we discussed were to have been relocated and planting added between them and the patios.
I believe it was a response to a question as to whether or not they'd be able to meet their sound requirements for the units. And so
They
Is
can. The comment was 3 units in particular. The overall patterning of all these condensing units for each unit is majority of them. It's a little bit of planting separating the patios serving the same unit, and these pads. There's a few that didn't have that, so our comment was to ensure that all condensing units are separated between the patio and the pad themselves with landscaping.
Okay.
And that could just be a note. I think that's simple because we're not asking them to shift anything where it's affecting any of the sound along the perimeter. And they could achieve that.
Okay. All right,
Thank
any
you.
other discussion? No?
May I suggest
Okay.
we read that back just so that we have an understanding
Yeah.
that
Yeah, give me one moment. I need to pull it up. Okay, so I have approval of review after final with the condition to paint the backflow preventer black or dark green and to shift the air conditioning units in order to accommodate plantings.
Yeah, and we could offer that it would be the minimum distance already shown on plan for other units, because it's a majority of it, and they were all consistently shifted by, I don't know, foot, let's say, or something for conversation. So a planner would be able to see that there's already a number of units on the plan on this set that's been reviewed that has a consistent dimension, and we can just ask if they match that.
Okay, so I added using a consistent dimension.
To match,
Consistent minimum dimension.
to match the other units, not shifted.
Getting complicated.
Yes, I think that clarifies it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Are we satisfied?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's have our vote.
Okay, so we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Watkins.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And now we can move on to announcements, continuances, withdrawals, etc. Anything, Matthew?
Yes. Chair, I did want to bring to everyone's attention once again that we do have a 15-minute time limit for applicant presentations. So timer will be on display in the top right-hand corner of the screen. And once that runs out, it is at the chair's discretion whether or not to allow for more time for the applicant presentations. So doesn't mean that you can't go over everything. And if there are any questions that remain unanswered, please know that the board does have time to ask questions if they need in order to make their determination. Also, I have received a notice from Board Member Olson that he will be recusing himself from 2700 De La Vina as well as 1812 San Pasqual. And I have also received word from Board Member Cunningham that he will be recusing himself from the bike share program and from 2700 De La Vina.
Okay. Thank you.
I will also
And
be doing
any,
that one.
sorry, say that again.
I'll also be recusing myself from the second item from 2700 De La Vina.
Okay. Does that give us a quorum still?
So I
Yes.
believe Mr. Watkins will be abstaining. So
Right.
as long as he's
Sorry.
here, it should be count towards quorum.
Mr. Wayland just showed up.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good.
Yeah, I
We're
was just
fine.
gonna
Everything's
say,
good.
Wow. We're all here.
All right. Unfortunately, we can't see everybody on screen at once, but okay. Well, any subcommittee reports? I don't imagine much has been happening out there. No? Okay, then let's move on from general business. Go on to our first item.
Mr. Chair, I'll be stepping out now. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham, can you please state the nature of your conflict?
We have contracts with the consultants working for the applicant.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. So this is item number 1, which is the downtown city right-of-way project design and final approval for a proposal for bike share infrastructure throughout the downtown area. This project is the first phase of bike share implementation in Santa Barbara. When complete, the project will involve the installation of 500 bike share docks, which will serve 250 electric assist bikes in a public bike share system. Of the 500 docks, around 300 to 350 will be located downtown or along State Street. The remaining 150 to 200 docks will be located along the waterfront. A number of enrollment kiosks will help to serve walk-up customers. These docks and bike share stations, which are groupings of docks, will be located in the furniture zone adjacent to the other street fixtures like light poles, newspaper stands, planters, and street trees, and existing hitching post like parking. And we have slide 2. Along State Street and into the downtown area, these stations generally consist of small groups of 2 to 6 docks along the waterfront and in higher usage areas. These dock number may increase to accommodate more users. Project design and final approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the following guidelines, the urban design guidelines. All right. So Matthew, a quick procedural question.
Sure.
So this is listed for PDA and final approval. Does that mean it's already been through some sort of planning review and been deemed complete?
That is correct. So this is a deemed complete project. So we are subject to the permit streamlining timelines. The applicant did request that I clarify where this is in the process before they give their presentation. So just for your edification, there was a letter that was sent out to you today that this is a pilot bike share program as approved by City Council in May 2019. After vetting vendors, the City Council subsequently contracted with B-Cycle to operate within the city. The design in front of you today represents the most minimal of B-Cycle's prefabricated rack options. And with this understanding, we ask for input solely on the color of these prefab designs. The project is subject to time constraints and wishes to receive final decisions today and will incorporate ABR's preferred color option for those areas outside of the HLC's jurisdiction. Comments from the HLC were received on August 5th, 2020, and those minutes are available to the board today. Timmy can pull them up if you would like to have reference for what they requested from the design. So there's not a lot of leeway for design. These are prefabricated and already signed contracts with B-Cycle. So just keep that in mind in your review. Really focus on the color of today. They will go through sort of their process in picking, I believe, the design and location of these this infrastructure, but again, very limited in the scope of review today. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I guess my question, just looking at their map, so there's just a handful of locations that would be in our jurisdiction. Most of them are in HLC.
That's correct, yes. So most of it is in HLC. It's really targeting the downtown core. So that is why they went to HLC first. But your own take is also welcome. So without further adu, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dayton and I believe Ms. Ramaker.
Okay. Well, before you jump in, I just want to, so for the board, we're not looking at locations. We're not looking at other details like that, whether we feel it's an appropriate location or anything like that. It's really the appearance and really the coloring of these docks. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And also I'd like to note that transportation staff did work with the vendor that was contracted by approval through City Council to find the most minimal design possible. So what's presented to you today is the most minimal available by the vendor.
Okay, then let's have the applicant come on screen here. Hello, Mr. Dayton. Welcome.
Hello, Chair Moore and Commissioners. Thank you so much. Really an honor to be with you today. I want to introduce Morgan Raymaker, and she is the Executive Director of B-Cycle. You will know B-Cycle because you know Trek Bicycle. Trek Bicycle is the owner and operator for B-Cycle, and she'll be very instrumental in answering any questions that you might have about B-Cycle. But I want to go through our thought process on this. Bike share has been in the general plan for some time. Actually, the councils wanted it. Rob, when are we going to do it? Come on, can't we do it? And the answer to that. Actually, next slide. I want to tell you. Start with what council's done so far. We actually ended up bringing up a pilot program in May last year, and then we actually brought the bike share pilot program request for applications. And then finally council agreed on B-Cycle as the vendor who Morgan works for. So that was done. So next slide, let me tell you a little bit of the background, because the bottom line with bike share and the reason that transportation planning has been very hesitant to bring bike share to Santa Barbara is it's messy. It's not neat. And I'm going to show you pictures to prove it. These are, bike share started out as a docking system, and docking systems add a little bit of more order. This is a good picture of a docking system. The next slide shows you what bikes look like in that docking system. A little bit more order, but what happened in the bike share industry is it quickly went to what is known as dockless. So if you go to the next slide, it'll show you some examples of dockless. And this is the kind of thing that Commissioner Six is laughing at, and so am I, because the bottom line is we didn't want to see this in Santa Barbara. Next slide. More examples of disorganization all over the city. This is the kind of thing that we did not want to see. Next slide. Bike share was even, this is in the morning after they've put out the bikes in a perfectly good order, but then someone comes along and the domino effect, and they all go down. Next slide. And, even Pasadena, who has a lot of order, trying to do theirs, and, they end up in the wrong place. This is a picture of a bike in the Arroyo, kind of downcast and not working, good working service. So believe me, the transportation planning, when we were asked by Kent City Council to do bike share, did this with great trepidation. We didn't thinking of the HLC and the ABR and you, the keepers of our beautiful city and keeping it beautiful, thought that bike share was really ready for Santa Barbara. And that is before we knew B-Cycle. So let me tell you a little bit about B-Cycle. Let's go to the next slide. But first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about this bike. And I know you're not talking about it today and it's not your purview, but I want you to know about this program. These are very expensive, $2,000 plus electric bikes, an all electric fleet. This bike, we were a little scared when we interviewed them because it looked a little LA-ish. And they have done some very pleasant things to make it look a little bit more Santa Barbara. The basket detail in the basket up front, and then the triangular piece in the back underneath the seat, putting some decals on that to soften its approach, taking their logo that's B-Cycle and really minimizing it so that's more of an all-white facade on the bike. These are the types of things that they've done that have really brought it to us. Okay, we think that maybe this is acceptable for Santa Barbara. Next slide. But here's the thing that we're most excited about. And this is what they call their 3.0 docking system. This is their docking system. It is standalone. It can be placed in 2s or 3s or even alone. It has a cell phone, so it registers all by itself. You check it out, not by putting in cash or a credit card, but everything is done through the phone to check out this bike in this dock. And then I'm going to show you some pictures of the State Street Plaza. And I know it's not your jurisdiction, but these are the pictures, next slide, that we were showing HLC, because this is a real concern, is that this dock fits in with the context of our sidewalk street furniture. So these are some docks you can, this would be like a pretty big grouping. You can see how they kind of fade in. It's more like a bike rack rather than anything big. Next slide. Just show you a couple areas around downtown, some with bikes, some with not. These are all photoshopped in. This is the scale. You see that right next to your hitching post, which you're very familiar with. Next slide. These are the kinds of the ways they would look in different grouping. You see them in 2s, you see them in 3s, one with a bike. Next slide. Just getting a feel for the scale and what it looks like. This is the type of thing that we think, okay, well, we're not going to get disorganization, and then the dock is actually rather elegant. Just to speak about the color, next slide. The color is an anodized aluminum. It's an anodized aluminum and it's black. It comes that way from the manufacturer, an anodized aluminum. So if we are going to change the color, which we're open to, we think that anodized aluminum black looks very, very nice. It's pretty graffiti approved, but if you want us to look at changing the color, we can do that. And that would most likely be done in a vinyl wrap. Probably not the most enduring or long lasting, but it would get us to a different color if that was the decision. HLC was preferable to black, but talked to us about adding some ornamentation, which we're looking and we're returning back to HLC on that, just for El Pueblo Viejo. Next slide. I also want to show you what the details are like. We do, in the case of the plaza, put a little bit more of a beefy foundation. Most of these will be bolted right to the sidewalk, so they won't need an added foundation. They would be done, as the chair spoke, in the furniture zone, which is right next to the curb, mostly right next to the curb on the sidewalk, on wider sidewalks. Next slide. And then in very small number of locations, they do have what they call their 1.0 station, which does have a pay option. And that's the only reason you would do this, is because you want to have a pay option. And this would be more of a tourist oriented, people who are in the city of Santa Barbara who are using bike share, which is the primary drive is for our citizens. They will use mainly through the app, and they'll have a membership in the app to use it. But if a tourist comes to town, this kiosk allows them to put in their credit card information right at the kiosk and not through the phone. And this is what that looks like. This is the minimalist. We asked them for the most minimalist look, very simple, and no advertising whatsoever, which is also something we instructed them to do. Next slide. Want to show you what they look like with bikes in them. And then next slide, want to show you exactly where we're talking about putting something like that. And these would be the 1.0 system, what you're looking at. This is a Photoshop of it. They would be in the waterfront only. They would not be in the downtown, in places where B-Cycle is expected to see higher volumes of usage. Next slide. So this is a map of the area. Your jurisdiction locations are circled. The green is where we would have the larger docking, the 1.0, and the black is where you would see the 3.0 docking systems. Next slide. And I just wanted to blow that up for you. We wanted to show you some locations that would actually be in the waterfront and at the harbor. So I want to zero in on these locations for the waterfront. And if you would go to the next slide, we'll show you those, where they would be. These are the listings of the sites in the waterfront. The kiosk ones are hyphenated. Next slide. This is a location that you're probably familiar with in the waterfront. There are 2 trees down in the harbor that have these kind of, I don't know when they were placed in here, but concrete bike racks with a ring around the tree. We would remove one of these rings and put docks, the 3.0 dock, simple dock, all the way around the tree with bikes coming out from it. So get a little bit more usage of this area where you're more likely to expect bicycle parking. Next slide. And here's another location along the harbor where we would place a docking system. So I think that that's the end of the presentation. If you go to the next slide, we're here to answer any questions. Again, I know that you're just focused on the color, but we're more than happy to answer any questions about the program and what council's intentions were when they selected B-Cycle. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for allowing us this time.
Okay, thank you. Question for you. Well, I guess we need to open public comment, don't we? Sorry,
Yes,
Matthew.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to open public comment. If you would like to make a comment to the board or make any other comments regarding this particular item, please raise your hand and Matthew can give you more specifics.
Yes, absolutely. So there should be a raise hand icon in the top right-hand corner of your screen. If the arrow is green, it means your hand is down. If it's a red, it means your hand is raised. So red is raised. It's a little counterintuitive. I do see Patricia Staley, who is has had her hand raised. Let me. Patricia, you are self-muted, so if you would like to speak on this item, you can unmute yourself and we'll give you your 2 minutes.
Red is up and green is down. No, I didn't wish to speak. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Yes. Okay, then I'll turn it off for you. And then I did see Kellum DeForest flicker on and off, so I'm just going to unmute you now, Mr. DeForest. If you do not mind unmuting yourself, it should be in the top right-hand corner, look like a microphone, if you are wishing to speak on this item.
Want me to speak now?
Yes, you can. We can hear you.
Okay. My concern is a basic concern. Having been involved in removing all the automobile parking from State Street many may not be aware of, was lined with cars in my youth, with parked cars, and that was considered messy and detracted from the beauty of Santa Barbara. I'm afraid these bicycle racks, especially when they have bicycles in them, are going to have the same look that the cars had years ago. So I would like any bicycle parking not to be on the sidewalk, not to be along with even the area reserved for street furniture. I think these are much more than street furniture. So thank you very much for considering placing these racks somewhere else than just on the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeForest. I've muted you. So we'll just bring up that screen once again, just in case you are wishing to raise your hand. Again, red means raised. So if your hand is green, that means you do not have your hand raised. So I am not seeing anyone else at this time, Mr. Chair. We did receive written public comment from Mr. DeForest. I believe we also received written comment from someone else, but let me pull that up really quick. Mary, do you have access to those? They're not coming up for me.
Yes, we have one from Mitch Hawkins and Molly Bienquitz and Kellum DeForest. So 3 total.
All right. Thank you, Mary. And we also, I do see Zoanne Lyle with her hand still raised. So I'll unmute her, but I believe she's here for the final item on the agenda, as mentioned earlier. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right. If you don't mind, yeah, perfect. Thank you. Putting your hand down. All right, Mr. Chair, we will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to just repeat again that we did receive written comment from Mr. DeForest, Mitch Hawkins regarding the bike share program, and as well as Molly Biankiewicz. And so thank you for those comments. They were distributed to the board members. All right, and we're going to move on to questions from the board. And just to start out, Mr. Dayton, if you could come on screen here. So you took this to HLC. They weighed in on the color. They preferred black and asked for some additional ornamentation. Did they have any suggestions about what that might be?
The comments were about, they were looking at balconies and how balconies are simple but then are made more Santa Barbara through scrolls. And they asked us to do a study on scrolls. So we've done a little bit of that study and we're ready to come back to them. This program doesn't cost the city any money. So if we did choose that, we'd have to go back to council and ask the council to spend money on scrolls if that's what's approved.
Okay. Is there any reason in your mind why the kiosks or stations would not be exactly what the HLC reviewed and approved throughout the city? Would there be any reason to have difference?
Oh, a different, Commissioner Moore, like a different station and different locations, different colors?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that, you know, if the bulk of these are on state or in HLC's jurisdiction, it seems like we should go along with whatever they prefer. So is there any reason that, other than financially, maybe we can save some money if these ones aren't decorated and those are?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think that's an excellent question. So I would answer that a couple different ways. If this is the first phase of the program, so if this is kind of the pilot program we're dealing with. If this is successful and we see the traction from our residents that we think we'll get, that B-Cycle's gotten in other communities, then we would look to expand it, and the expansion would most likely happen in the ABR area. So we're looking for, the approval we're looking for is a standard, and yes, it is for the branding. For many reasons, it's best to have the branding, the colors be the same, both for a financial standpoint and from a visibility standpoint, for our residents to find the docking systems. You got to remember that there will be far more docks than there will be bikes, because this is a one-way program. You check out a bike and you go one way and then you dock it and then you're not paying for it, which is the convenient part of it. You're not renting a bike for a day, you're renting a bike for a trip. And so it's really important for customers of this system to really have a feel for what they're looking for when they're looking for a dock to park their bike. So consistency is, I would say, very important.
Okay. Thank you. Do any other board members have questions about the color of the docks?
Mr. Chair, Richard.
Yes. Could you get your webcam up?
I'll sit up straight too. It's kind of related to the color. Rob, you said that you wanted to minimize advertisements. I noticed that on the samples anyway, there's the black B-cycle logo and on the bike itself, there is the logo. Is it our assumption that these would go away and it would be simply a black unit?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Six, no, we do want to associate the brand, so so for the wayfinding purposes only. So we've asked them to minimize that logo. Just to give you an idea, just some perspective. Maybe we shouldn't have asked them before you saw it, but the bicycle, for instance, the little B-cycle you see on there, that was very, very large across the whole bottom tube. And we said, hey, no, that's not Santa Barbara. But we do want to have people find where they're docking. So it's kind of a fine line between being visible and invisible, and the branding in this case is important. So I hope that helps.
So Rob, then the docks themselves would have, you're proposing that the docks themselves would have that white logo on each and every dock going vertically?
That's correct.
Let's see what you get. Okay. And I'm also confused about some of the photo sims show that well, it's easy to see with the independent dock that the concrete would be poured around it and colored to match the brick as in the State Street situation, but with the Unit 1 or whatever they call Station 1, it shows a wide, long black platform connecting the whole thing, and I think I saw some others where there was more than one docking unit that the black platform was there also between them. Can you explain what happened to the ground directly around and between these beasts would be?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Six. So yes, they're connected to the pay station, the one you're seeing on your screen now. The pay station that would take a credit card for someone who's new to the system, perhaps a tourist, which is why we would do it in those areas. These would be directly bolted to the concrete sidewalk. So, and we would only do it in an area where you'd have enough space on the sidewalk so that the bikes, when docked, would not interfere with the walking path.
So we would see these black platforms when we have a ticket, a kiosk, and or several docks in a row, correct?
That's correct. And I think there's 7 locations you would see that.
Okay, thanks. No, those
Okay,
are my
anyone else? Questions?
Yes, it's Leon.
Okay, Leon.
Oh, Rob, could you describe again a little bit about what the HLC has said about ornamentation?
Absolutely. Chair Moore and Commissioner Olson, they talked about scrolling. And so what we did is we've done some mock-ups for iron scrolling on the 3.0 dock, to the side of the 3.0 dock. And, I don't want to give away the presentation. We could if there's any HLC members watching. But yeah, I mean, the purview is paint only. You guys are very important to the city, and we're honoring that. And we did the study, and we're going to bring it back to them and show them. It's essentially scrolling between the base of the dock and the side of the dock, if you will, kind of like on the edge of it. But it is iron. It is iron against anodized aluminum. So I guess it's to the.
What we're being asked to approve here is only color. I understand that, but isn't there an element here that we're not even seeing? And it seems like you said that their HLC or the AVR is being given a choice because the program might be expanded. But if that was the case, would the program be expanded in this version that we're into AVR territory that we're not seeing?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Olson, I think if I understand that question, you're just grappling with the issue of two boards and if they choose two different things. The HLC their purview is also color. So, if there was some sort of discrepancy at the end, I don't know how we would work that out. But I'm sure as staff, we could figure that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure you understood my question. I probably didn't say it correctly, but there is ornamentation that's going to be involved with this product, and we're not seeing that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Olson, we don't know that there's ornamentation yet. We are headed back to HLC to show them what we found and give them comments on what we think about it. And the thing that's really important, I think, about that is that if a board or the HLC insisted upon that scrolling, we'd have to go back to council to get money to do that, because there is no money for that. The B-Cycle bike share program is completely funded by B-Cycle. There is no city money involved except for the staffing.
Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't more helpful.
Chair Moore,
Go ahead.
can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Hey, Rob. I appreciate the city and B-Cycle getting together and putting together a program like this. I think it's pretty well needed right now, and I think the overall direction and what you guys have presented looks good to me. But I did have one little question. It's more related to program, so it's nothing that is affect how I approve it. But was there any discussions with racks being run up to Coast Village Road, since that's part of the city as well, to activate that line?
Yes, Chair Moore and Commissioner Watkins, absolutely. That's something that B-Cycle is interested in doing. This is a very expensive for them. This is a very expensive investment into Santa Barbara. If you start counting bikes and the cost of those bikes and the cost of the infrastructure, they're going to see it work. This is a for-profit business, so the city gets a benefit. Hopefully it's profitable for them. And then they would, yes, Coast Village Road would absolutely be an area they would be interested in putting docks.
Cool. Just curious. Thank you. That's it.
And just so you know, all APR commissioners, B-Cycle has told us they do need these 1.0. They need some 1.0s. And we've been pushing back on them saying, look, we really like you because of the 3.0s. And so they've been very helpful to really minimize it. We have pushed them and pushed them and pushed them and pushed them to get down to the minimal here. But our expectation as staff is that we're going to see 3.0 docks that are less intrusive or visually disruptive throughout the city.
Okay. Thank you. And I want to remind the board that really our jurisdiction is color at this point. If they do come back with another design that HLC prefers, we'll deal with it at that time. But we need to review what's being presented to us today.
Mr. I have a question.
Yes, please.
Rob, is there a choice of color on the white bike, the white parts of the bike?
I think I'll have Morgan Remaker come up for that question. I think all the bikes are already made.
Okay.
Thank you. Richard, remember, we're here to look at the dock. The bike is not part of that discussion. All right.
My question is, if they're going to put black and white graphics on the dock, I would like to see a less contrasting graphic on the dock, and if the bike comes in a less contrasting color, I would suggest that we match the contrasting color of the bike with the graphics, so it is related.
Okay, Morgan?
Okay,
Yeah, and thank you for the question. I can at least speak to the bike itself. They do come as standard white, and then the pieces of color that you see on here are decals that we can adjust, and that is the part that we can play around with. I will say the white is kind of a good thing for safety. It's a little more visible than a black bike. We do have some places where they've used vinyl wraps to change the color of the bike, but that does have implications for the long-term use and quality of the look and feel of the bike, but it is an option.
So white is your offering, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
okay, any other questions? All right. Let's go to comments then. Oh, David, are you trying, Mr.
Sorry.
Black,
Yeah,
you trying to say something? There you go.
well, I had a
You have
question.
question?
Yeah. So
Okay.
on the kiosk at the 1.0 stations, I saw sort of around what looks to be a sign on top, and I was just curious as to whether, is that an internally lit sign? Does that light up with the logo on it?
Morgan? Is that lit?
No, it does not.
Okay,
Great question, though.
that's all. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to move from questions to comments. Leon, why don't you start? Comments.
No comments.
Okay, Mr. Whalen, any comments?
None at all.
Okay. Mr. Six, any comments?
Yeah, it's a great program. The colors are as neutral as they can be. I would like to see the graphics on the dock be a little less contrasting color, but it's a great program and excited to see it go forward.
Okay, Mr. Black?
Yeah, I would agree with those comments. Nothing else. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Watkins?
I like it. I like the colors. I like the material they chose. I would go ahead and just present a motion if I could to approve it as presented.
Okay, I would second that. Any discussion?
Nope.
None? I'm looking at you, Richard.
No, not as,
Okay.
well, David, do you feel like we could indicate a little, but no, it's not worth it. I do want to make a comment that I would not like to see the curlicues in that might come from HLC be dispersed throughout the city. I think this is its simplicity goes with all types of architecture that we deal with.
Okay. David, as a maker of the motion, would you entertain including
That comment?
no ornamentation?
I would just stick with the existing as proposed, with the understanding any kind of detailing they're doing later would come back anyway. So I think it's fine for as it's presented. It's a really nice project.
Okay, I agree. So if there's no other discussion, let's take our vote.
Thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham. He's recused. Board Member Olson,
Yes, yes,
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Matthew, just to be complete, do we have to read anything else into that motion?
So this would be subject to, we'd have to reopen the item, but yes, this would be subject to the project compatibility analysis. And please announce the 10-day appeal period.
Okay. So we're going to reopen this item and amend the motion made by Mr. Watkins. If you could read in the project compatibility criteria.
Sure. So this project fully complies with the city charter and municipal code requirements, as I understand. The design as presented is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the areas presented throughout the city. The design as presented is very compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood. The color and simple profiles lend itself to the number of designs found throughout the city. It's very clean and well built in appearance, so it looks like it would fit downtown as well. That's pretty much it. Color is appropriate. The scale, height, bulk, mass, and size don't really apply, but the scale of the racks as presented are, I think, very appropriate and minimal in size, and do not come across as bulky in any way. And that would be it. I would say there is no sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and historic resources, as that would fall into another design review board. These designs do not impede any public views of the oceans or mountains as presented, and it's not applicable if there's any effect on open space and landscaping, as they are going over existing hardscape. Or I shouldn't say existing, they are going over hardscape, so there's no impact.
Okay, I will, as a seconder, I'll accept that change and addition. So we can do our vote again.
Okay, so we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, and there's a 10-day appeal period for this item. Okay, thank you very much for that. And here you go. There's the appeal process on the screen.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on to item number 2, which is 2700 De La Vina Street, which is here for project design and final approval. And this is here just a few weeks ago. It was a proposal for a commercial remodel. Project entails exterior facade and site improvements, including removal of existing window display case and installation of aluminum storefronts, new French doors, replace fabric at 3 existing awning frames, and relocate 3 new canvas awnings to Alomar Avenue facade. Remove concrete sidewalk and install 602 square feet of permeable pavers at the reconfigured outdoor dining area, new metal guardrail, remove and replace existing canopy with new metal canopy, new landscaping and irrigation, new metal canopy awning and facade changes. No change in the number of parking spaces is proposed. And slide 2, project design and final approval is requested, and this project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the urban
Mr. Chair, it looks like we've lost audio.
last year, August 10th.
Perfect.
And
There you are. Back.
that is it. I understand, Leon, you have,
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself on this project. Mr. Poirier and I are associated with the project at 631 Garden Street for the Community Arts Workshop. And I'm also going to recuse myself from the 1812 San Pasquale project. I have opposed this developer's project, which is right next door to my, where I live, and I'm unable to remain objective on that project.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Chair Moore, I'll also be recusing myself or abstaining from this one as I didn't follow the first meeting, so I'm not prepared to weigh in on that today.
Great. Mr. Chair, if we could just ask everyone who is going to be able to, who will be in the room for this review to, like the board members who will be on this review, to please turn on your camera just so that we can do a quick quorum check, because it was unclear if we will have, perfect, we are good.
Looks like we do. Great. Okay, do we have the applicant here? Matthew, do we have our applicant?
I'm
So if I could ask Paul to turn on his webcam, I've just sent you a webcam request. Here you
There he
go.
is.
All right, we're here.
Okay, welcome back.
Howdy.
Could we have our minutes or our comments up from the last time? Okay, the motion continue 2 weeks. Board appreciates the presentation. Design of the patio space, railing, hardscape are appreciated. Provide denser, taller planting around the patio. The awning needs further study to differentiate it from the existing conditions and to use more traditional detailing. Study removing the existing eyebrow at the westernmost elevation. The awning's colors and storefront changes seem acceptable. Provide 2 street trees on either street frontage. Okay. If you could walk us through what you've done.
Sure. Robert Adams is also in cyberspace waiting, Ellen. So if you could track him down, I'll start. So go to the next slide. We did add the 4 street trees, 2 on each frontage. I'm sure those will be scrutinized by Public Works regarding how close they can be to the intersection, but we wanted to provide some shade there. We think that's a reasonable location, and we will see what Public Works says about that when we review it. We did alter the landscaping and the awning. Go to the next slide, please. And the next one. This is showing the roof plan. So we altered the awning to be kind of an open louver, so it'll provide shade, but you know, let rain go through still and wind go through. And we eliminated the eyebrow on this section over to the left per your request. We also changed the geometry of the curved awning. You can go to the next one. So you can see on the left-hand elevation there that we took out the existing eyebrow that sticks out about 1 foot off the building to make that brioche facade clean with the yellow awnings on the existing awning frames. And you can see we also lowered the long curved eyebrow awning to be a little bit lower than the existing awning. And we also changed the geometry of the stanchions that are suspending that off of the wall to be at a lower angle as opposed to about a 45-degree angle, and extended the throw of that awning to be 6 feet. Let's see what else is on there. No real changes to the colors. Next slide, please. That's the same too. Next slide, please. So you can see how these additional trees, mostly if you look at the upper right-hand corner, will really frame the building, enhance the overall corner effect. Robert has some plants. These are not an accurate depiction of the plants that Robert has in terms of pussy willows or whatever those things are. But Robert can explain the landscape plan when we get to that. You could also see how the awning interacts with the existing soffit awning to the right on this elevation. And I think it's an improvement to shove that down. We're going to be getting a lot more shade there. This is showing kind of early morning sun angle, but in the afternoon in the summer, there'll be a decent sun on the ground over there. And these trees will also help provide a little bit of shade and cool that corner. which is otherwise just a giant paved area. Next, it's kind of more of the same. And you can see the trees again there, kind of the same deal going on. So let me see, what else did we do here? Yeah, go to the next one. We can show the detail of the awning. Couple. That's the existing condition. Go to the next one. And the next one. So there's a detail of the awning. You see the cross section has slats at an angle across the length of that, so that water and air will be able to go through that metal awning. And it is fabricated out of aluminum. Keep the weight light. And there you have it. So maybe we can go to the next one, see if there's anything to look at, and turn it over to Robert. Yeah, nothing to look at. Exit signs. So go to the landscape plan, and Robert can talk about that.
Hi, can everyone hear? Okay, hello?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you for the comments. I think they were good comments. So we are going to be adding some street trees. I had a discussion with Nathan Slack. He's works as the head of urban forestry, and we talked about street trees that were possible. And so we decided that what we would do is use the firewheel tree for the trees. I think it'll be a great addition. They have a canopy, they're relatively compact. And because when you look at this corner, you look at one view, we thought he was fine with us matching the firewheel tree. He gave me choices like podocarpus and crepe myrtle and the firewheel, and I really like the firewheel for this project. Then the other change I made to this landscape is pretty much it's the same as you saw last week, but now up against the railing in front of the dining area, we have a taller aloe, which I think will really be striking, quite beautiful. So that'll get 42 inches high. In a lot of places with the flowers, it's an orange safari aloe. So those are primarily the changes. Everything, of course, is going to be drip irrigated on a weather smart controller to every planting bed. And that's all I have for that. That's it.
I guess that concludes our presentation. If you guys have any questions, I think we've addressed all of the comments from last meeting 2 weeks ago.
Okay, thank you. So we will open public comment at this time. Any member of the public would like to address the board? Please refer to this instructions on the screen.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask everybody to please mute themselves while we have public comment. And I'd ask the applicants to also turn off their webcams during public comment. And for the commissioner, or for the board members who are present, who are participating in this agenda item, if you could please turn your webcams on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Yes, so if now to public comment. If you are a member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, please raise your hand. There's a raise hand icon in the front top right-hand corner of the screen. If the hand is red, it means it's raised. If it's green, it means it's down. I'm not seeing any raised hands for this item, Mr. Chair, and we did not receive any written public comment.
Okay, thank you. Then we will close public comment and go on to questions. Did any board members have any questions?
If the board members can turn, oh, there we go. If y'all could start turning on your cameras.
Mr. Whalen, you have a question?
No, I don't.
Mr. Chair, I have
Mr. Black, question?
No questions from me.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, so Paul, I noticed there wasn't any, or it doesn't appear to be any detailing of the new canopy to reflect, some more traditional sense. It's all very streamlined. I'm wondering if you explored either an OG or medallions along the fascia to give it some more traditional look.
We did explore a flat grid, like a woven grid, like you'd have, say, on a balcony landing. The cost for that was plus $20,000. Putting the louvers in was plus $10,000. So that was the compromise we made.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, on the front face. I think medallions, we could put medallions on there, no problem. There'll be some kind of joints where the segmented partitions come through anyway. So there might be, we could work that out to make it detailed out to be pretty cool, right? Where each one of these horizontal elements comes out and pokes and attaches to the perimeter piece.
Yeah, some kind of geometric thing or whatever. Yeah, or a illusion, alluding to the connection with some kind of extra plate or something with fake bolts or bolt heads or something.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Any other questions? Board members, who are we missing? Is it just us four? I guess it's just us four. Question for on the awning. So it's segmented. These are straight pieces you got put together. Is that correct?
No, this is going to be the front and the back pieces are curved, and the pieces in between are going to be straight.
Got it. Okay. And then is there, I've dealt with awnings before, and we've been able to get them to move the rod connection back from the front face. Is that something you've
That's how it'll actually
talked
be.
to them about?
Yeah, it'll actually be back about a foot or so.
Okay. All right.
Awkward on the front. So it's going to be mounted onto the horizontal piece that comes out with like a little clevis right there.
Okay. All right. That's a definite improvement. Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair, just a suggestion, Paul, that it would probably be a lot easier if your connection of the back horizontal railing against the wall stood out from the wall so the plaster could be continuous.
Yeah. Yeah. We could have a little kind of a knob spacer, have the horizontal elements stick out like an inch or two on the back so that they're bearing on something solid.
Yeah, I think you'll be a lot more happier with that than trying to deal with weatherproofing, whether you stop and start or how do you get behind there, blah, blah, blah. So,
yeah.
Okay, any other questions? We're ready for comments. We're ready for comments. Okay, David, why don't you start with comments?
Okay, thanks. I think adding those street trees is a big improvement. Thank you for doing that. It's really going to soften and shade that corner. I think for the rest of the plant material as it's shown, I think is fine. The only question I had, and this would be a question or a comment to Robert, is I noticed your ground covers that you're showing. One of them is Myoporum parvifolium down there at the corner. And my experience with that plant is it gets like, it's a ground cover, it's low, which is fine, but it gets like 5 feet across. It's a big spreading ground cover and you have it in a very small space competing with sort of other small plant materials for the most part. So anyway, that's just an observation. You may want to rethink the use of that particular plant just from a a maintenance perspective. Otherwise, you'd be constantly whacking it back. But those are my comments.
Okay, Richard?
Yeah, I think it's a very nice project. The addition of the trees and the changes to the landscaping are great. I think lowering the canopy and so forth are great. As I suggested in my questions, I think that just a few more finesses of the connectors or the treatment of the fascia of the new awning and spacing it away from the plaster in the back would make this, would complete this nice plan.
Okay, thank you. Dennis, comments?
I too support the addition of the street trees. I hope that works out with the city arborist or public works. Especially the bloom on that stenocarpus is going to be a wonderful contrast to the brightly colored awnings. Thank you.
Kevin, you seem frozen.
So I think we just lost the chair momentarily. It looks like, hang on just a second. I'm gonna try to, looks like he's trying to rejoin. Mr. Chair?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. I'm just thinking if we continue to have audio issues, then you might want to call in as an alternative. I can send you the instructions for that.
Okay. Well, if you can hear me for now.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments? I mean, I'm in agreement with what everyone has said. Yeah. Do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion for, does this have to have compatibility analysis, Brad?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
So first of all, before I do, Kevin, what do you think these minor detailing on the canopy could, well, obviously, I guess they'd have to come back to consent after final. Is that a way to process this so our applicant can get going?
Well, they could potentially come back to consent next Monday.
Paul, would you be amenable to that?
So we do have ability to do that, and that can be either a final or a review after final or a project design and final, depending on what you all feel you can grant this project today.
That's fine next time. It's fine.
Okay, so I will make a motion for final approval of the project as presented with a continuance to consent to add traditional, a sense of traditional detailing on the new aluminum canopy. And that the project complies with the project compatibility criteria. Number one, as far as the board has been informed, it complies with the city charter and municipal codes. The board finds that it is consistent with the design guidelines of this particular location of the project in the city. It is compatible. Number two, it is compatible with the architectural character of the city and neighborhood. Given that it has Hispanic character and distinct design. Number 3, it's appropriate mass, bulk, and scale and height, as the proposal does not increase any of those. Number 4, there are no adjacent landmarks or historic resources that would be impacted. Number 5, there are no public views of the ocean and mountains that would be impacted. And number 6, it has very good use of open space and landscaping, as it has very desirable improvements to the front site area.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, if I may, because the motion on the table right now is for final approval, I believe the correct motion would be project design and final approval with a continuance to consent for review after final of the details on the awning and including the project compatibility analysis. Is that correct?
That's correct. Do I need to restate that, or does Mary get that? Okay.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And we need a seconder, I believe.
Second.
Okay,
David.
seconded by Mr. Black. Any other discussion? One set. Okay, let's have our vote.
Thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there's a 10-day appeal period,
Yes, there is.
I believe. All right, there you go.
All right.
And let's go ahead.
Mr. Chair, the next item is scheduled to begin at 4:45, so we can start hearing this item at 4:30. I just wanted to get that on your radar.
Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break and we can reconvene then.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
meeting and the agenda for August 24th. And we're moving on to item number 3, which is 1812 San Pasqual Street. This is a concept review. And is a proposal for 4 residential townhomes on a site developed with a duplex using the city's AUD program. Project entails retaining the existing 1-story duplex and constructing a new 2-story structure containing 4 2-bedroom townhomes. So 4 2-bedroom townhomes. The unit sizes range from 931 to 1,120 square feet with an average size of 981 square feet. The proposed density on this 11,580 square foot lot is 23 dwelling units per acre. On a site with a general plan land use designation of medium high density residential, which allows 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. 4 new parking spaces are proposed as part of this project. And no final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. The project requires compliance with project compatibility analysis, the urban design guidelines, the infill design guidelines, and the outdoor lighting design guidelines. Okay. We have the applicant.
Before we start, if I could just make an announcement. We did receive some written public comment, as well as I believe we do have someone here concerned about the parking number. They are more than welcome to state their concerns about the number of parking spaces, but they should also be aware that this board does not dictate the number of parking spaces required for a development in the city of Santa Barbara. That is dictated by the municipal code and has been, and for the type of project that is being proposed right now, 1 parking space per unit is the by right allowance for any development using the average unit size density program. That was decided by City Council. There's been a number of amendments, but that provision within the code has remained as part of the average unit size density program. So again, you are welcome to state your concerns. Just please know that this board is an aesthetics board. It is not a land use board. So it does not weigh in on the number of parking spaces required for a development, simply on the aesthetics of the project. But so I wanted to get it out there. Like I said, stick around, voice your concerns. It's great to have you on record. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. And all right, do we have the applicant? There he is. All right, welcome. If you could introduce yourself, and you have 15 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Moore, board members. My name is Noah Greer. I'm the architect and agent for the owner on this project. Matthew, can we begin by looking at the neighborhood photo exhibits? So the site that we're talking about is 1812 San Pasqual between West Pedregosa and West Islay. It's a 0.27 acre site, and it's adjacent, as you can see in the photos, to the train tracks and then the freeway to Plan East. It is zoned multifamily residential. General plan is medium density residential. And this view from this aerial is looking south-southeast. The site's at the center with the vacant lot behind. So the sort of vacant dirt lot portion is where we're proposing the new units. There's a shared driveway easement that you're seeing. You can just see it as where it attaches to San Pasqual. This is a really lovely neighborhood, a really eclectic neighborhood. I really like this neighborhood a lot. And I hope you'll find that my design reflected a desire to build off what it was that I enjoyed about this neighborhood, while still accommodating a dense AUD project that's consistent with the zoning. The neighborhood really does have a pretty wide variety of densities, from single family, small bungalows, to dense multifamily 2-story development. Next slide, please. So I'll just start with some site photos, and then we'll look at a couple mappings of the neighborhood, and then photos of the surrounding development. Most of these photos have legends as well to show where they're taken from. View A here is from San Pasqual, looking plan east down the shared driveway easement. The existing single-story duplex is there on the right. And the next photo, photo B, will be taken from the end of that driveway. So in photo B, we're now in the interior of the lot, looking right where we'll be where we're proposing the new building, looking south towards the existing two-story multifamily development. Next slide, please. View C is taken from a similar location, but looking north. We're looking past the adjacent property, one parcel over, where we can see a nearby two-story multifamily development. View D, taken from a similar location, but now looking west towards the existing duplex that will remain largely unchanged at the front of the lot. Next slide, please. So just some quick mappings. This mapping looking at densities based on my walk through the neighborhood, the site outlined in black, and then blue showing existing multi-unit residential. I do think it's a fair characterization to say that this is an eclectic neighborhood, and there certainly are a fair number of multi-unit residential projects existing. Next slide, please. In this context, study is just really looking at a mix of single-story buildings and existing two-story buildings. Next slide, please. And then here, a map showing where the photos that I'm going to fly through after this were taken from. All adjacent sites were photographed, and I've also included some lovely examples from a couple streets over that I referenced in the proposed design. And that's enough about that. Let's get into it. So photo 1 here, there are a number of quite modest bungalows, as the one you're seeing there. Photo 2, and this is on San Pascal, 2 parcels to the north. This is an existing multifamily building, 2 stories, that was in fact visible in one of those photos from the site. Next slide. Photo 3. In this view on the left, you can see the project that I was just talking about, the 2-story multifamily. And then the aqua single story here in the foreground, that's the adjacent property. So the property that we're talking about, our site, shares a driveway easement with this project. Very simple utilitarian architecture, as is existing on our site, and as you'll find throughout the neighborhood as well. Photo number 4, another example of single-story bungalows, of which there are a few. And the multifamily project that you can see behind, the chimneys behind, wraps all the way behind this property and then touches the site we're discussing. Next slide. Photo 5, we're just walking down the street now. This is a 2-story modest modern apartment building. I would say that this is not typical for the neighborhood. Photo 6, more typical and I think more enjoyable. Certainly something I found inspiring, at least. This is one of a number of homes in a sort of English vernacular style. They're quite eclectic in nature, but there are some common themes. Stucco, steeper roofs, very tight eaves, details like those terracotta gable vents, and recessed windows without wood trim, I'd say, are what you'll find more often than not throughout the neighborhood. Next slide. Photo 7, very, very simple, modest home. Again, stucco, no eaves. I'm going to guess that the trim around the windows was a retrofit at some point in time. Moving on to, and these, I should say, these sites are approximately right across the street. Photo 8, the across the street neighbor with a sort of simple stucco bungalow. Next slide, please. Photo 9, hidden stucco bungalow. Photo 10, another example of sort of English vernacular eclectic details that I enjoyed in the roofs, eaves, gable vents, the recessed windows in the stucco. Next slide. Photo 11 is just another example of a modest bungalow. Photo 12, another example of some of those English vernacular details. Next slide. Photo 13, you're seeing a theme here with the steep roofs, the stucco, etc. Again, it's my guess that the window on the left there with the trim was a retrofit at some point in time. I quite like the simple look of the windows simply recessed into the stucco, as you're seeing in photo 14 on the right. Next slide. Photo 15, some similar elements. Photo 16, a home that's been modified over time. Next slide. Photo 17 is quite a distinctive home at the corner of West Islay in San Pascal. And then photo 18, this is the site that abuts ours, two-story, quite dense, multifamily complex. Thank you. I just wanted to fly through all of those to talk about the eclectic nature of the neighborhood and to talk about some of those English vernacular details that I really enjoyed and that I really tried to bring into our design. Great. Matthew, can we flip to the existing site plan? There we go. Thank you. So San Pascal here is on the left, and at the top of the plan, you're seeing in a lighter gray the existing single-story duplex that shares a driveway running right down between those two properties. Thank you. And then in a darker gray, that's the footprint of the existing duplex that will remain. There will be some site upgrades, but no changes will be made to the building itself. And then of course at the right, the vacant portion of the parcel, that's where we're proposing to site the new building. There are two trees we're proposing to remove. One is in the middle of the new driveway, the new shared driveway. It's the smaller, maybe 6-inch ornamental. But then at the rear of the property, there is I believe it's 18-inch, excuse me, pepper tree that's proposed for removal. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so here at the front of the parcel, as you enter off San Pascal, you can see a number of the site improvements, which do include a new shared driveway, new sidewalks, and new trash enclosures for the front two units, units A and B. And then at the rear of the parcel, you're seeing the footprint of our proposed new structure. The new unit is sort of a courtyard configuration with the private open yards at center.
Sorry, Noah, just a quick reminder, we do have less than 5 minutes left on your timer.
Thank you very much. Okay, the new building is set back considerably from the street, approximately 90 feet. And the project does not have any requested modifications. The parking is per the city requirements for an AUD project. Okay, next slide, please. I'll start with the first floor plan, plan 1 at the bottom right, and I'll keep it quick. You can see each of the units has an oversized one-car garage that pulls off the driveway. The common spaces and the garages occupy the first floors of the units. And then there's a large planter at center in front of the unit, in front of the building, excuse me. And we'll talk about the sort of varied massing when we're looking at the elevations. Thank you. Second floor plan, please. Okay, so the second floor has the bedrooms and decks. And below that, you can see the roof line from the first story below. You can see how the second story has been pulled in from the first floor to help vary the massing. And can we look at the roof plan, please, Matthew? Just very quickly, you can see we use 6 and 12 roofs for the majority of the roofs. There are some roofs on the first floor that are simply 4 and 12. And I really made an effort to use the varied roof lines to help add some architectural interest to the structure. Next sheet, please. Great, thank you. If I can start with view 1, the north elevation. So this is a view that connects directly to that shared driveway. There are a number of cues that I took from the English vernacular style, from the stucco to the recessed openings to the simple detailing to some of the varied sort of gable vents. I also made an effort to kind of define a distinctive character for each of the units using different color treatments, but also say the hipped roofs on the right side closer to the street versus the gabled roofs on the left side. We have simple stucco eaves. They're shown as a 10-inch fluted stucco eave. The finish intended to be a troweled stucco. Again, the recessed windows without trim. And so I should also say each of the units was given a sort of distinctive entry, again, to help give them each a unique character. Okay, we can zoom in on the south elevation, please. Thank you. So here at the middle of this elevation, that's where the private open yards are located. It's also where you can really see the stepped plates. Most of the spaces have a 9-foot, all the public spaces and bedrooms have a 9-foot plate. However, at the circulation areas on the second floor, I went down to an 8-foot plate to help vary the massing. And here, I think you can see a better example of my intention for the gable vent proportions. I really like that sort of playful, tall, skinny gable vent that I've seen in English vernacular. Thank you. If we could zoom in on elevation 3, the east elevation. Okay, so this is the elevation that faces the train tracks and the freeway. It's the elevation that has sort of the most mass to it, and I intentionally pushed that back to this portion of the property, which is really very minimally visible from almost anywhere. Lastly, we can look at elevation 4, the west elevation. So this is the elevation that faces the existing cottage. And I wish that I had faded back the roof in the background a little further, because you really would never perceive the mass to be quite so heavy here. By utilizing the hipped roofs at this portion of the building, from the entryway to the first floor over the garage to the second floor portion, the intention was to bring the massing down where it's nearer our sort of single-story modest cottage. Again, this is set back approximately 90 feet to the street. And I hope you'll agree that we took some design cues from the neighborhood, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts.
Okay, thank you for being time conscious there, right on the dot. All right, we are going to open public comment.
Yes,
Matthew, is there anybody out there?
Thank you. Yes, and finally, Zoanne gets to speak. So I will unmute you, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Anyone else in the public who wishes to speak, please raise your hand at this time, indicated at the top right-hand corner of your screen. Red means raised. And with that, Zoanne, I'll hand it over to you.
So thank you for explaining that the parking situation is not in your purview. I understand that, but I guess I'd still like to just throw out the comment that the architect did use a picture of my home in one of his pictures. So I am a resident on San Pasqual, and our property is adjacent in one of the multi-family. There's 7 units actually, and we are involved in the property management. So just to put it out there, we have 16 off-street parking spaces for our 7-unit property. So 4 spots seems a little lean for 2-bedroom units. But I guess what I would want to comment or question is that I think the renderings are attractive in terms of the building, but you know, just from the street perspective, you're not going to be able to see that building from the street. All you're going to see is the existing structure, the two, I guess, existing units that are there already. So, you know, it's not the most attractive building. I'm curious if there's any plans to improve the look of that existing structure or the landscaping that's there currently. So curious about that.
All right. Does that conclude your comments?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. And then, so if anyone else in the public would like to speak on this item, please indicate so by raising your hand. I am not seeing anyone right now, Mr. Chair. We did receive 2 pieces of written comment. We have one from is loading, Mr. Simonson, Vince Simonson, and we have another from a Mr. Bob Conway. And both of those were sent to the board for.
Yes, we received those. Thank you very much. And with that, we will close public comment and move on to questions. I guess just to start out, I've got a couple of questions for the applicant, just so we can get it out of the way and hopefully move on to looking at the architecture. Can you tell us about the easement, and does your client also own the adjacent parcel?
Chair Moore, there is a shared easement across the properties. As far as I am aware, the owner does not own the adjacent parcel. I believe the agreement, the easement is pre-existing with another property owner, but I do not know that for certain.
Okay. So I guess to continue on the easement question, is there some sort of, your development is pushing the circulation, at least the car related circulation, on majority of that onto the other, to the northern side of that easement? Is there any, and you're taking advantage of that that gives you a little more breathing room on your side to add the walkway and the trash enclosures and things like that. Has this been vetted in any way with the easement language?
Insofar as I read the easement language, and I believe our proposal is consistent with the limitations of the easement, yes.
Okay.
But there's been no legal review that I'm aware of to date.
Okay. All right. So I will hand it off. Bob, do you have any questions?
Yes. I have a question of staff. First of all, since this is one lot, not 2, we are, I think, essentially looking at the front unit as well as the rear, and basically have purview with regard to our review of the entire lot. Is that correct, Matthew?
So the board is reviewing today the scope of work that is proposed. There are, the board can ask for scope to be expanded. It cannot demand that scope can be expanded. So it just depends on what is being proposed for that front unit. So definitely in the realm of ask at that point is within the purview of the board.
May I clarify the scope there? Just very quickly, in response to your comment and the neighbor comment, the intention is that in future stages, we will be coming to your board with a totally new, a complete redesign of the landscape that will include the area of the existing duplex. But there is no intention to touch the architecture of the existing home.
Okay, so no, if I understand you correctly, you are going to have a complete landscape plan, including the front units, landscaping, prior to getting final approval from the board.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's good news. I would like to request, and this is kind of a comment, I would like to request that you, when you return provide us a cross section of the site or an elevation of the site from either the north or the south, showing the existing building in context. And that's a question, would you please do that? And that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And Chair Moore, may I just say as well that I'll certainly confirm that the easement, that our proposal is consistent with the easement.
Okay. Richard, questions?
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, then even if we asked for, we couldn't receive landscape improvements to the north side of the drive. That's no man's land as far as we're concerned, correct?
That's correct.
And but you will be providing new surfacing all down that easement, correct?
Correct.
All right. So if I, as a consequence of what you're doing here, I'm looking at, let's see, the site plan, and I see that the existing curb cut is quite misaligned with the new alignment to the driveway. Has that been vetted by transportation?
Chair Moore, Board Member 6, we have not yet spoken with transportation. Your board is sort of our first stop. But yes, I do absolutely understand that'll be part of the process.
Okay, and am I assuming then on the site plan that all of your trash and so forth will come up to these 5 or 2 and 3 bins in front of the or by the side of the existing duplex, and all the new homes will bring up their trash to there?
Yes, and just to be perfectly clear, the trash enclosures shown in the site plan near the existing duplex, those serve only the existing duplex, and the new units have space within their oversized garages for their trash and recycling. And yes, they would be brought up to the street, presumably.
Okay. Then on your elevations, the very nice computer program that puts these together. It's a very handsome look, but I'm concerned about the it looks very lovely with the what appears to be significant recesses in these windows with the slight shading and so forth of the computer program. What's your exterior wall thickness in order to get this handsome looking depth to these windows?
Well, I can tell you, I hand drew those. Sadly, I haven't found a program where I can push a button to do it yet. But I mean, I will admit that the shading may be overemphasized a bit there because the way that I drew it, we have 2x6 exterior walls. We have worked out a detail with fairly thin framed windows where we can recess them within the 2x6 wall, but they are proposed 2x6 walls. So we end up with a, 2-inch or maybe 3-inch, I think at most, recess on those windows.
Better than a 2x4. And your garage doors, you're showing what looks like carriage doors, or are those sectional roll-up doors?
They are sectional roll-up doors that have the look of carriage doors.
All right, and you're proposing 2 tones, or is that?
There are actually 3 tones.
Okay.
On the right, a sort of mossy green, and then a cream, moving to the left, a cream, and then a sort of taupe or tan, I'm calling it there, and then back to the cream.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, just to jump in, the intention was to give each of the units a sort of distinct identity where the spaces of that unit are approximately represented by a distinct color, at least on the front facade for each unit.
So our standard question in regards to concerns with privacy with the neighbors, it doesn't appear to be affecting the neighbor to the north. Can we, but we don't have images or plan on the plan anyway of the existing units to the south. Can you go to maybe the aerial would do the best on that to see what neighbors might be impacted? So that's as far as we can zoom, huh?
So, and if I may clarify here, the portion of the site behind the existing duplex that's sort of, there's a transition between bare soil and grass. That is approximately the edge of this property there. Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't go all the way to the railroad. Okay.
It does not. It does not. There's a sort of oddly shaped remainder parcel with no access back there.
So there appears to be only one minor window or so in the existing complex to the south. And the yard, of course, but all right. Thank you. I think those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Dennis, any questions?
No questions, Chair Moore.
All right. David, questions?
Simple question. So the building to the north, the neighbor that you share the driveway with, what is that behind that particular structure I'm seeing? Is that, I'm just trying to understand. I realize that your project's not going to touch anything north of the driveway, but I'm just trying to understand how it interfaces with the neighbor's property, you know, behind, and what that's going to end up looking like. It looks, those travel trailers, what are those?
As far as I'm aware, and from what I observed on site, there are no actual structures back there. It's simply used as a parking lot and storage.
Okay. I guess my question is, so have you thought about how your building, which is quite handsome, by the way, how that's going to interface with that portion of the adjacent property? I mean, what's that going to look like?
I mean, I know that the owner intends to work with the adjacent owner on some sort of landscape upgrades to that site to help sort of smooth that transition, but I have not designed anything specific to that location.
Okay. No other questions.
Okay. My question is, so in regards to the existing house, and typically when we see projects coming in proposing to do this infill behind, they tend to, or we tend to guide them to match the existing condition with what's proposed. So what you're proposing is different than what's there now. I would say the proposed is certainly more attractive than what's there now. But you did also mention that there's no plan to improve the front structure architecturally at all. So our guidelines kind of steer us towards everything needs to match on site, essentially. So we would have to make an exception, or we'd have to see that this is, you know, there's a really good reason for it not having a similar appearance. Can you answer that?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. there are a couple points I'd like to make. One is I'm tragically optimistic at some point in the future I might be able to redesign the existing duplex at the front. But no, that is not part of the project now. So I certainly understand your comment. A point I would make is that this lot is substantially deeper than the vast majority of lots in the surrounding area. Obviously, we can even see here in the foreground of the image that's on the screen, there are 2 deeper lots with the adjacent structure and then the multifamily 2-story. But from there to the left, the lots are about half as deep as ours. And then in the background here, we're seeing that the lots are shallower. Could we look at the site context, the first sheet of the site context exhibit? I think that might help provide a point of reference. It was the other PDF, please. And it's page 4. Thank you. So, here you can see the properties closer on the freeway side of San Pasqual. There are some deeper properties, but there are also many instances where you have, I guess the point that I'm driving towards is that I feel like with the location of that building being set so far back from the street that the perception from the street won't be of an incongruent development, but rather it'll be very similar to what you see as you're walking elsewhere, that the assumption to the eye would be that they're just 2 totally separate properties.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then on the separation between the 2 buildings, it's down to 10 feet. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then you had mentioned that you had put the garages are extra wide to accommodate trash. Is that right? Or just extra wide in general? Okay, so if we can go to the first floor plan. So if I'm going to enter unit C, which is in the lower left, I come down a walkway between the 2 buildings, and then into a bit of a fenced area before I hit the door.
Correct.
And enter. Okay.
And that is our accessible, adaptable unit.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to take advantage of the proximity to the street and the ability to put in that wide walkway with a big sort of landing courtyard at the door.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there's also a washer dryer in the garage and bike parking.
Yes.
Okay, in each garage. Okay. All right, so, and then on the back, you're not quite at your 6-foot setback. Is that right?
That's correct. We're set slightly in from that.
A foot off or so, maybe 18 inches. Is there any reason that you're not on the back setback? Is there any reason not to shift the building back?
If I'm coming clean, it's because I was over on my square footages, and I think we cut the building back there, and I would happily shift the building back to get some more distance to the front unit.
Okay. And then on to the private open yard. So unit C's, you would come out that little slider, the living area, and then into an area about 6 feet wide, and then into an area about, is that like 9 feet deep, where it says unit C, private open yard? Yeah, in that dimension.
I'd yeah, maybe perhaps 9.6.
Okay.
In that zone.
Okay. All right, and those are my questions. So let's move on to comments unless anybody else has a follow-up question.
Actually, can I ask some questions, Chair Moore?
Oh, yes, of course.
Thanks.
Correct forgot you're not on screen, so I forgot about you.
Sorry about that. Since we're on the sheet, actually, if we can stay here for a minute, I was curious about the arrangement of these private open yards and how they're kind of grouped around each other like that. And it appears the two that are closest to D and E they're kind of hemmed in a little bit by the outer units of C and F. What was that strategy about?
I landed on I should say one of the primary goals was to create a sort of unique identity for each unit with this unique entry condition. And once we had the entries each sort of separated around the building and the building footprint was sort of coming into place, I really played a lot with different layouts for those yards. And I landed on this yard layout because although D and E are, arguably landlocked, in fact, they have a sort of more usable space in many ways. And so it was a balancing act to try to give them sort of more space in recognition of their maybe less than ideal location of those yards, while still providing the minimum dimensions that we need for unit C and F. And I should say too that, providing ready access to all of them that still provided usable space for them. And this is what I landed on as the most functional layout.
And then the materials of the doors and windows, I know it's super early right now, but it seems like with this kind of design, you're going to rely a lot on the opening conditions, like by having that furred wall and the rolling back of the plaster. What kind of materials for doors and windows are you guys thinking about?
I'm virtually certain for this project that we'll be proposing a painted composite frame windows, factory finished composite frame windows. For the doors, I really would want to come back to your board with that answer, as much as I would love to have solid wood doors with some unique detailing on them. I would want to come back to your board after sort of checking on the budget.
And when you mean composite, you mean aluminum clad composite, or?
I think in likelihood it would be a fiberglass or vinyl product.
Okay. And then do you have any, I'm trying to remember back in your presentation, the earlier part of the photos, do you have any from that rear lot kind of looking at those adjacent multifamily units to kind of get a sense of what their views are looking back towards the lot?
I do, yes. If we can go to the other PDF, please. But in the earlier slides here, there's a view that I hope is clear. It's going to be slide 2. One slide earlier. There we go. So view B there on the right. That's the best photo I have here of the adjacent multifamily.
And then the previous PDF that was up for a second, is that the back end of the other parcel that has multifamily on the back end? Yeah, that image C. Thank you.
And that is, to clarify, not the adjacent. The adjacent parcel is the sort of parking area and sort of storage area you see in the foreground.
So this one's beyond that one.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Those are my only questions right now. Thank you.
All right, let's move into comments then. Bob, do you want to start us off?
I'm sorry, I've got one more question. If we go back to the site plan. I'm interested in knowing the widths of the entry walks to units D and E.
I'll be honest, Board Member Cunningham, I don't recall off the top of my head, nor do I have them dimensioned, but I believe they're in the neighborhood of 4'6". and they're
They
you know,
appear
slightly oversized, I guess might be my short answer.
sure. Okay, they appear to be a little bit wider than they need to be. Okay, comments. First of all, I think this is a very nice piece of architecture. I don't feel uncomfortable about it not matching the front units. I think it'll be an improvement in the neighborhood, and I could easily find that this is compatible. I would like to address, thank you for being on this particular elevation. I'd like to address the pop-out unit to the right of the front door and over the garage. That I think the eave condition there and the hip roof give this kind of a squatty, squarish look that it's not as graceful as the similar unit to the east, which has the gable roof. I'm not saying that that the hip should be changed, but I think maybe the configuration of that window would give that a particular elevation a little more grace. I'd like you to address adding a street tree in the front of the project and removing the existing curb cut, if I'm correct. That it looks like there's a curb cut there. I think looking at the aerial that you showed us, it seems like that existing pepper tree is pretty substantial. I think your landscape plan is going to need to address adding some trees with some substantial height on the site. I think the building would be complemented by that, and I think it's necessary for the neighborhood. I think it would be a good idea on the patio sides of units D and E. I think the ground floor units there, that they should have windows with lights looking out into the patio rather than solid panel doors. I think it would be, you do have lights. Okay. That's good because you got some solar access there into the house and views out into the patios. So I don't have any more comments. Again, I think it's a very nice project. Definitely will be an improvement in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Noah, can we have you turn off your webcam so we can have all of our board members up here? There we go. There's David. Okay, Richard, why don't you go next with comments?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also like this architecture, and I think that in regards to the site plan and the arrangement of the open areas in the back and so forth, it's commensurate with the modest housing we have here. They're not the best configurations, but I think they're good and acceptable offerings for this level of housing. I do agree that there's nothing to write home about on the front unit, so I don't have a problem with matching the back unit with the front unit. And I think the age of the front unit, we might see it go much faster than this brand new unit. I think that the drive alignment certainly will be ironed out with further review. I agree with Bob on that the gable ends are much more successful, and I would even say that I'm not overly concerned about the variety of each unit having its own distinct look. I think that you could successfully introduce gables in the right-hand building. And I don't even mind, and turn the gables on the right-hand side so it's facing, what would that be, the west elevation. I think that the gables are much more successful than the hips. I would also suggest, and again, I don't think you need to be concerned about uniqueness of units. I think that the balcony on this elevation that we're looking at on, again, the right-hand unit should have a trellis much more needed because it's on the southwest exposure. And I think that trellis is a nice feature that should be provided by both. I think that somebody alluded to it, that the entries to the units at the side are a little weak. And I would suggest that either a decorative gate or a simple arcade, not an arch, but a engaged column and a freestanding column at the corners of those garages. You turn the corners and go down the sides with obviously the address or the post office, the box number would be a nice feature. I think that on the rear unit, it would have to be perpendicular to the garages, the garage openings, but you could go under it and somehow announce that, hey, this is my unit, and you go through this opening or this this event and turn the corner and go down the building. I think that would strengthen the side entries. I think, I think that on a lot of your English tutor examples, they had tight eaves, but they didn't have this rolled stucco. I think you might look at the tight eaves instead of the rolled stucco. I think it would give you a much sharper and more bang for your buck with a deep shadow line than rolling the plaster. I think I like where you're going, but I think that the rolled plaster kind of flattens. I think you get more bang out of your buck with a shadow line and short eaves. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Any comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I'm going to agree with the others. I think it's a handsome design that relates well to the neighborhood, if not specifically to those buildings immediately adjacent. I think it will be a handsome addition and a good watermark for other projects to meet to. It's unfortunate that Unit F on the first floor, the relationship to the adjacent building, from what I can tell, it's not going to be very pleasant out there. It would be helpful if that plot of the adjacent buildings were shown on the site plan. We only see the building to the north. So those adjacencies, I think it would be helpful. Right, it only shows the one building instead of all of the neighbors around. And so I'm speaking to the unit on the far right and its adjacency to the two-story building on the opposite side, the south side. For me, this I think the architects latched onto a good idea, or a noble idea, I should say, of giving each unit their own identity. But it seems to me you either have to embrace this wholeheartedly or not. So a suggestion towards individuality would be having, say, different shades of roofing colors to identify along with different shades of stucco. However, I have to believe that I am firmly in the camp that the plan should be reflected in the elevation. And if you're going to have a symmetrical plan, well, perhaps the elevations should be asymmetrical and the identity of the building should be more or less as one, with perhaps some individual touches at the entryway, but not even completely necessary. I'll leave it up to the architect. I'm not thoroughly convinced one way or the other, but I do have to say I'm a believer that the plan should be reflected in the elevation. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Black, comments?
You know, I don't really have any additional comments. I would agree pretty much with what's been said, and I think it's I think it's a very nice project which really add to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Watkins.
Thank you, Chair Moore. Since we're on the north, I'll start with this one. I actually appreciate a lot of things that are going on right here. One, I do appreciate you taking the time in researching and walking the community, and I think that does show up in your design a lot. I like that even though this is one big mass, that you have selectively differentiated a little bit of the units here and there, so that it's not just one homogeneous front. The varying roof lines is nice too, and the steep pitch. I think those are all really effective to break up that apparent bulk that could be there. And the little things like the little wood treatments, I support this right now a lot because of the detailing that's going on with the wood treatment. So I hope that doesn't get lost. I think that's actually pretty integral to bringing this to a more comfortable and human scale. So I would at least push personally to maintain those elements throughout the project, I think, as best you can. And I think Board Member 6's comment about the flipping of the trellis was good. I don't necessarily think you maybe need to keep the one that's currently shown right now and provide an additional one, but I think in terms of energy performance and shading for that particular unit at the northwest, I think that would help a lot to consider moving that trellis over there just for that aspect. From a massing perspective, though, I don't see it being necessary at that corner. So take it what you will. Regarding the materials, I actually like the door window placements a lot. I think I'll just say right now, your sizing of your doors and windows are pretty effective. I think it really does help break up, again, that rhythm of the massing that's happening between the roof lines that are taller and the ones that drop down in between those mass bolts. And so I like that too. I would caution against looking at vinyl or vinyl composites for the future. I think because you don't have a lot of, shutters or heavy wood trims going around these window openings right now, I think it does come down to your thickness of your wall and how you're treating that transition, and then also the materials of the doors and windows. So I think at very least like a clad aluminum would be nice because you are bringing more focus to those elements because you are stripping down other aspects. The rolling of the plaster, I personally like that, and I think it is nice that you're rolling it up to the eaves as well. I would offer trying to get more thickness. I think because this is a two-story element and there are a couple larger wall planes, looking at thickening that recess more, I think would be really helpful for that, to get that detailing to not have to rely on adding extra trim elements to break up that apparent bulk. So if there's ways, whether it's through like rigid or something like that, that you can buy a few more inches off that front face and not have to go and thicken the wall with studs for 2x8s. I would love to see that the next round because, again, there's no, trim boards, things like that. Maybe sills might help. Maybe they're not part of your design aspect. But I think a thickening plaster and then the quality of the doors and windows is what's going to sell the project. I agree with the comments about the entrances on, I think F possibly, and then also C, if we can go to that first floor plan again for a minute. I did see C's entryway, and I think that was the first one that caught my eye, is following that train of thought of Chair Moore's, maybe potential comment. I don't want to put words in there, but finding space between the front unit that's existing and this new unit. Unit C doesn't really have anything right now. You walk in this little chute of a fence line and get there, so that nice presence that's there, that's happening on D and E with the little roof treatments or a little sense of a porch. You see that porch a lot, even small, modest ones throughout that neighborhood. So I think finding a way to manipulate that with not having to add square footage, you could do that a couple ways. So I would look for that for Unit C a little bit for the entryway. And I'm still hung up on the Unit D and E's private open yards. I worry that they're going to feel kind of claustrophobic, or shadow shoots in a way. I mean, they are facing the south, but personally, I think being in Unit D and having three side, of your fence line surrounded by people, I think there's something that doesn't quite feel private about that. So I'd like to see how you can break those up a little bit more to kind of give D and E more access to the side yard, side property line. Somehow, I think right now those are you have so much space, I guess, and you actually gain more space by not having to provide a driveway, which happens a lot in these size lots in this part of town. But then I see that private outdoor space is getting squished, which is kind of counterintuitive for me. So I'd like to see maybe how you could provide a little bit more outdoor space, or not more, better configured outdoor space for those two units. Otherwise, the material and the approach, I think, is great. I like the project, just save for those concerns. So I look forward to seeing what you come back with. But it's nice. I like it. I think it's a really nice project for this neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. My own comments, I think I won't go over what people have mentioned before, but picking up where David left off, I think there's just some inherent challenges with this multi-family model and having private sort of stacked private open space, because if I look at Unit D and Unit E's private open yard, they, the other units overlook those, like the upper floor is looking directly down onto those. So I have concerns about the privacy, and it's just a little, I think it's clever, but I think it's also a little unfortunate for those units. And it seems like, you could de-emphasize the garage a little bit and figure out another configuration for the bike parking, like hang the bike next to the trash and recycling, and then use that extra 2 feet or whatever to give that to the private open yards, or at least you could expand them somehow to give them a little bit more breathing room. And I would suggest trying to slide this building back towards the freeway and railroad tracks as much as possible to give you more breathing room between the existing duplex and this, and do that however you can, and then try and upgrade the entry sequence for units C and F. Whether maybe reconsider how that, for instance, Unit C or Unit F, like, where is their front porch actually? Where does that actually start? It could start much further north in plan, or much further towards the garage space, so they actually have a more occupiable, usable porch. And that is in addition to the private open yard, which is always good. And then on the elevations, I think the design is great. I think the massing is great, but I think you're getting a lot of mileage out of the notion that these, or at least graphically, that the notion is that these openings are deeply recessed, I think, as well as the materiality that's suggested. So it would be really unfortunate for the applicant to return with a nail-on window and an inch or two of a reveal at each door and window. Because I think what's being shown here is what we would all like to see, and I think that contributes to the overall quality of the design that everybody seems to like. I think if it would be a different matter if there wasn't heavy shadows and wood detailing and the like. So those are my comments. Now this is conceptual design, so we still need a motion with comments. Would anybody like to take a crack at one? You takers? No? Okay, well, I'll take a crack then. I will make a motion for a continuance back to the full board, indefinite continuance back to the full board with the following comments: that the board appreciates the overall direction of the design and feels the general massing and breakup of the proposed structure is going in the right direction. The board especially appreciates the proposed recessed windows and doors and the various detailing and quality of materials proposed. The board highly suggests that a landscape plan be provided that includes the entire property, including the area around the front duplex, and that the applicant shall look for ways to create a further separation between the proposed building and the existing duplex, as well as enhance the design of the entries for units C and F. And also look for ways to expand the private open yards at the rear of the building and explore ways of providing additional privacy for those private open yards for unit D and E.
I'll second the motion. I'd like to add that the applicant should remove and repair the existing curb cut, add a street tree, and I believe that's all I have to add.
Okay. Add a street tree where they would remove. Sorry, they would remove that curb cut and add a tree there.
If the curb cuts removed, there should be room for at least one street.
Okay. Sorry about the noise. 1 second.
No worries.
Mr. Chair?
Okay.
If I may add, if you feel it appropriate to, for the applicant to verify the agreements upon the easement to determine whether there are opportunities or responsibility to improve the north side drive and north side of the drive. And
I think we can add that and suggest that the applicant carefully study and the easement language and confirm that what is being proposed is achievable.
Okay. I like that. And at least one board member prefers more gable ends than the hips.
I would second that.
And suggest that the trellis be moved, either reproduced or moved to the south, to the northwest building, portion of the building.
Okay, how about this? How about we say it like this, that the applicant shall study the suggestions made about the roof design as well as the second floor trellis location.
Great.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Anything else?
Yeah, can I share more for discussion?
Yep.
That the applicant explored, let me say this, wall cladding assemblies to thicken the exterior face of the plaster as much as possible. I don't want to word it that he has to provide thickened framing, but there's things you can do with the detailing on the exterior to get it thicker. And then
Well,
the second would be about
that
material.
Okay. I think we said earlier that we're expecting that there be a recessed, a deeper recess than. So I think it's up to them how they achieve that.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I guess, yeah, we'll see. We can see what he comes up with. The other comment was, I don't know what the other board members feel like about material for doors and windows, that they don't be vinyl or vinyl composite. That would be a personal preference right now to guide them along the way earlier.
Well, I mean, we can have a short discussion on that, maybe do a straw vote just to test the waters. I mean, we've seen a number of other projects come through that have used a vinyl window. And we've accepted those. So
Mr. Chair.
Is it the material or the appearance that you're concerned about?
My concern with this project is that
grain.
Yeah, my concern with this one is because it's stripped of all the other detailing around these openings, and it's already being defined that, the framing is a 2x6, so there's not much more you're going to do to get a recess off that. So my worry is that with the flatness and material of that vinyl look, plus the stripping down of all the detailing that you might see typically around doors and windows, that it's going to start reading very flat, and the quality is going to. I guess I don't see how the design is going to be improved that way. At that point, I think it's going to be out of character. So I'm worried about that, I guess.
Okay, Richard, you were.
Well, I was
going to say something.
Trying to say something that the board is concerned and looks forward to early detailing and suggestions around windows and the window types. Would that help, David?
I'd personally still want to see a discussion in the straw vote now, at least to kind of get the board's thoughts on it, and so then they can at least kind of work from that decision.
I don't think we can let's see what he comes up with. He might want to go with heavy sills and trim and so forth once he looks at it, or rolled out plaster. I think it's a little early to dictate that myself. With all respect, David.
I can go with that. I mean, if people feel that, we can wait and see. I mean, it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
if I
Well, we
can
could add
I
to the
think-
motion.
I think that the applicant has done a wonderful rendering. Congratulations, Noah, for a hand rendering. This is excellent. But you're showing us something that really expresses a quality that I hope you can follow through with, because it's it's very nice now. I would not want to see it deteriorate because of budget considerations, but I do understand that this is not in a high-priced neighborhood, and you do have an audience that you're speaking to with regard to who's going to rent these places. So that's understood, but please do your best to give us the quality that you're showing now.
Okay, so I would recommend that we add to the motion that the board expects the applicant to pursue detailing around the doors and windows that will match the proposed renderings. And then they can come back and show us how they've done that. And if they want to change the design, they're welcome to do that.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's update the motion to include that. Anything else?
Is that change
No?
accepted by
Okay,
the
well,
motion?
Yes.
okay, so if there's no other discussion, we can have our vote.
All right, this is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Watkins,
Yes.
Board Member Whalen,
Yes.
and Board Member Cunningham.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that's our last item.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
Nice to have you back, David.
Okay, so then, yes, thanks for being present, and that will do it. And we will close our agenda for the Architecture Board of Review for the 24th. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks, Chair.
Bye.